What's going on, guys? Welcome to another Doctor Who classic review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the first Doctor William Hartnell story, The Time Meddler. So, it's been a little while since I've reviewed a first Doctor story. I haven't got one for a while since I got the 10th planet, so I thought it was about time that I got another one. And I decided to go for The Time Meddler. Now, why did I go for this one? I don't really know. I thought it was just an interesting one. I've never really heard that much about it, but I knew that the Time Meddler, you know, the meddling monk in the story, was he's a Time Lord, and it's actually the first time, I believe, that we actually see another Time Lord in Doctor Who. So yeah, I was interested in this for that reason mainly, and I'd heard that this was a decent story, not one of the classics, but a pretty decent story. But anyway, this is the Time Meddler. I can't speak. This is the Time Meddler by Dennis Spooner. The TARDIS lands on the Northumbrian coast, where new companion Stephen discovers a Viking helmet, and the Doctor deduces they must have arrived in the 11th century. Stephen remains skeptical, especially when he and Vicky encounter what appears to be a Saxon hunter with a modern wristwatch. Investigating a nearby monastery, the Doctor discovers further anachronisms. Who is the mysterious monk observing the time traveller's every move, and why is he so interested in the outcome of the Battle of Hastings? So a nice little synopsis at the back of the DVD there. Yeah, I was just interested in this story because it's the first real time we get to see another one of the Doctor's people, and altogether, you know, it's the first proper appearance, I believe, for Stephen. This is actually the first time I've ever seen Peter Purvis, yeah, that's how you say it, isn't it? Peter Purvis playing Stephen Taylor. I believe he was in The Chase, which is the episode before this. However, I haven't seen that yet, and this is where he properly comes into it. You know, I believe he was just kind of at the end of The Chase, or, you know, he was just a small role in that, where he actually becomes a companion in this one. This is also the first time that I'll be talking about Maureen O'Brien, who plays Vicky. I have seen her in the Rescue and the Romans, but I haven't reviewed those yet, and I don't have them on DVD. So this is the first time I'm going to be reviewing a Vicky story. So yeah, let's get into the cast. Alright, so let's of course start off with William Hartnell as the first Doctor. He's really good in this one. I mean, what can I say? William Hartnell is very good, especially in his earlier stuff. Yeah, he's very good. This is I think this is the final episode of season 2. And yeah, I mean, William Hartnell's great. This is a 4-part story, and he is absent for pretty much the entirety of part 2. But yeah, I mean, when he is in it, he has some of his best moments, I think, from what I've seen of him so far. Bearing in mind, this is only, I think, the 8th, I think, the 8th William Hartnell story I've seen, only the 6th that I've reviewed and have on DVD, but yeah, he just seems to have a bit more to do here. He has some funny moments, you know, when he's dressed up as the monk. He's dressed up as a monk, and he just looks really funny, and he reminded me a hell of a lot of, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, Ben Kenobi from the original trilogy Star Wars movies. Just looked so much like him. I thought it was great. And yeah, altogether, William Hartnell, top-notch as usual. Maureen O'Brien as Vicky, like I said, my first time reviewing Vicky, I suppose. But I have seen her previously in her first 2 stories, and this is obviously a fair way further into her era, I suppose. I do actually quite like Vicky. She's basically supposed to be a replacement for Susan, and from what I've seen of Susan so far, which I've actually seen more of her than I have of Vicky, I do much prefer Vicky. I didn't really like Susan. That may be a slightly controversial opinion because she was kind of the first major companion, really. I don't really like Susan. I think she's too yappy. She's way too screamy, and I just don't really like her as a character. I much prefer Vicky. I think she's just a more interesting character. She's not as screamy. She's not as annoying. She's not really annoying at all, to be honest. I just really like her. I think she's a great character. She has some great moments in this. And then Peter Purvis as Stephen Taylor. Yeah, like I said, this is my first time seeing Peter Purvis, and I think he's pretty good. I mean, he's nothing spectacular at the moment, but this is of course only his first proper story, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of him. I'll also mention Peter Butterworth as the monk because he has a very big part in this. I mean, you know, he's the main villain of this story, and honestly, he probably takes up more screen time than the Doctor and the companions in some ways. I think he does a really great job. He's the first Time Lord that's not the Doctor in the series, from what I know, and I think he does a really good job. He reminds me a lot of Patrick Troughton, and we will get into that in a second. Just the way he plays the role, which is interesting because Patrick Troughton had not even played the role by this point. But yeah, altogether, I think he does a really good job. Alright, so let's get on to the good and the bad, starting off with the good. Firstly, what do you think it is, a space helmet for a cow? That line, when, you know, the Doctor, Vicky and Stephen first come out of the TARDIS, when they land on the beach and he picks up a Viking helmet, and Stephen's like, what is this? And, you know, I wonder what this is about, and the Doctor's like, what do you think this is, a space helmet for a cow? It's just like, I just thought that was a really funny moment. Even though I hadn't seen this episode previously, I knew that line. And I think the way that William Hartnell delivers the line is just such a funny moment. I just really like it. I don't know why. It's a weird thing to say, but I just really like that moment. The Doctor figuring out when and where he is, I thought that was really cool. You know, when he's on his own because he's not with Vicky and Stephen at this point, and he's just talking to himself. I mean, yeah, it's a bit weird that he's just talking to himself, but you know, he's trying to figure out, you know, he's trying to figure out where and when he is. The clocks, you can kind of hear, you can kind of feel the clocks, the cogs turning over in his head as he's figuring out, okay, so you know, when he was talking to, I think it's Edith, I believe it's her who he talks to, you know, and he's just figuring out, you know, after the information that she's told him, okay, this is about to happen, this is what's happening now, this means that this is the time period, and blah blah blah, and you know, he's figuring out, he's like, okay, so this is going to be happening in the future, you know, there's going to be this big battle, so that means we must be in, oh yeah, that's it, 1066, and I love how he just works his way around that. I think that's just a really cool scene. It's just kind of a way to see how the Doctor's mind works in things like this. I think that's done really well. Like I briefly mentioned before, the monk reminds me a lot of the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. I just think, I don't know if it was intentional, you know, when they did eventually bring in the second Doctor and Patrick Troughton, that, you know, he was going to be a lot like this monk. I don't know if that was intentional, because of course at this time, remember this is right at the end of season 2, regeneration wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even a thing that they thought about. It was like, you know, at this point William Hartnell was the only Doctor, and that's how it was going to be until 2 seasons later when he became ill, and they kind of thought, we can reinvent the role by giving this character a new face. So it wasn't even a thing at this time, but just the way the monk acts, the way he talks and everything, even to some extent the way he looks, reminds me so much of the second Doctor that it's either just a massive coincidence, or, you know, when they did bring in Patrick Troughton, there was kind of a bit of a link going on there, thinking, we could kind of do something a little bit sneaky here. I do really like it though. I think, you know, looking back at it now, it's a nice little thing. Even if it wasn't intentional. Finding out the monk is a Time Lord, I thought was really cool. Of course, I already knew the twist that he was a Time Lord, but you know, we figure out throughout the story that obviously he's the one that's bringing these strange things, not from this current time, into this world. And then eventually, I think it's part 3 or maybe even part 4, we find out that he is actually a Time Lord. He has his own TARDIS, and like I said, I did kind of know this already, but it's still a good twist. The monk wanting to change history so that things will play out differently, I kind of like that. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche niche sort of thing. Not niche, that's the wrong word, just cliche, I suppose. You know, he wants to change history mainly so that things will happen earlier. I think the reason why he's doing it in this particular time with the Battle of Hastings is because instead of one person, I can't remember, I'm not very good with my history and stuff like this, and I can't remember, it's been a few days since I watched this and I haven't written it down, but you know, there's a certain person in the Battle of Hastings that he wanted to stop becoming the leader. He didn't want that person to be in charge, he wanted this other person to be in charge, because if this other person was in charge, things would play out a different way, and apparently, according to him, things would get done quicker or something. You know, he's like, you know, I don't know, certain things would, you know, come into the world sooner. I don't know why he cared about this. I guess he just liked messing around with time, because, you know, he did have a past with it. So yeah, I just thought that was a nice thing. You know, he's just changing little things in time to make things happen in different orders, and he already changed a few things. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool little thing. Finally, for the good stuff, the Doctor takes the monk's TARDIS's dimensional circuit, leaving him trapped in 1066. I thought that was a really cool way to finish him off. I mean, you know, it's kind of, we kind of wonder what's going on at first, because the Doctor just kind of leaves the monk. The monk kind of goes off and does his own thing. The Doctor's left behind. He goes into his TARDIS and he takes the dimensional circuit from the monk's TARDIS. First of all, he just gets that because he's like, this monk cannot keep on doing this. He's been doing this a lot. We've got to trap him to this time and stop him from traveling in time anymore. So he takes the dimensional circuit. The monk comes back and, you know, reads the note and that, and he's kind of all hoo-hoo joyful. And then when he realizes what has happened, what the Doctor has done to him, it's just a really great moment, and I think it's a great punishment for him. Onto a couple of bad things. First of all, I just want to say the Doctor is completely absent in part 2. I mentioned this briefly before, but yeah, part 2, the Doctor is completely absent. He gets taken by the monk and trapped in his cellar. I think he has a couple of dialogue lines at the start of the episode, but that's about it. Apart from that though, he is completely absent from part 2. That seems to happen quite a lot with William Hartnell with the first Doctor, which is a bit disappointing. I mean, it's not too bad because, you know, Vicky and Stephen and the monk, I suppose, do carry the role quite well, carry the episode quite well, but it is just unfortunate we don't get to see as much of William Hartnell. And then finally, it is quite slow at times in parts 1 to 3. I do think that it really does pick up quite well in part 4, but parts 1 to 3 can be a bit slow at times, but to be honest, that's just kind of classic Doctor Who as a whole. So what did I think of the Time Meddler? I thought it was pretty good. Like I said before, I wasn't expecting this to be a classic, and it wasn't, but it was still a pretty good episode, so I'm going to give the Time Meddler an 8 out of 10. I do think it's good. I think it's actually one of the better William Hartnells I've seen so far. I think out of the 6, this kind of sits in 3rd place, so it's pretty much in the middle. But yeah, 8 out of 10 is what I'm going to give the Time Meddler. I enjoyed it. I would definitely watch it again because it's only 4 parts. It's a fairly easy watch. It just can be a bit slow at times, but apart from that, I think it's a relatively interesting episode. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.